Hey everybody, it's time for another Ask Nico Q&A where you ask me your questions and I answer them to the best of my ability. Just so you guys know, we have a sale going on right now. 25% off all Scarlet Moon single readings, any single 30-minute, 60-minute reading, or even a downloadable video file is 25% off until the 11th of July. Thank you very much everyone for helping me get to 20,000. Also, if you do get a purchase for a sale, you will also receive a voucher you can send to Chris. Those of you who are interested in doing any kind of inner work, working on inner awakening, shadow work, clearing old emotional issues or behavioral patterns, working through those, I'm going to actually be sending out vouchers for any kind of mindful awareness coaching that you might want when it comes to actually, again, kind of getting in and sort of discovering, kind of, working through those outstanding issues or recurring patterns as well. If you would like to send a question to me for the Q&A, remember we've got to put a comment below, or you can tweet at me at Scarlet Moon Nico, or you can post on the Scarlet Moon Facebook wall. Mom Douglas asks, Nico, can readings be done for expectant mothers? I don't see why not. And if so, do you have you done any, and does the child influence the reading? Just curious about this. I have done readings for expectant mothers, but I don't think the child has kind of like jumped in and started talking. The child is kind of, it's almost like if somebody was getting a reading and their boyfriend or their husband was sitting next to them, or their girlfriend or whatever. The child isn't really the one asking the questions. That's just how I do my reading. I'm always like, I need questions from the person, and they gotta be questions. So I've never really had anything like that happen. I suppose if I was like offering maybe more like a channeling or a mediumship sort of thing, something like that would happen, but I'm not really confident in my ability to do that on a regular basis. It's really, kind of something I'm still training in. Butterfly asks, what is your opinion of online tarot readings where you click on the cards and the spread appears? Trying to understand how this would relate to me when there is no actual connection. Well, interestingly enough, I actually think that sometimes they can be very funny and very useful, but it's almost in the way that, like other random synchronicities can show up. Now, if you're doing them like all the time, like twice a day, every day, or once a day, every day, I do feel like they kind of lose their ability to actually speak to you. Ask any tarot reader, it's also not good for, this is why tarot readers, try not to read for themselves, because the temptation to read, and overread the same question over and over and over again, if a reader does that for themselves, then they get confused, they've opened up a lot of different dimensions from the reading. I think they can actually be kind of profound, especially the ones that I've been looking at. But I don't recommend doing them all the time, maybe like once a month or something like that, and then they can be pretty uncanny. Angels Whispering ASMR asks, what happens when a spell goes wrong? The intention might be pure, but the actual spell, its direction and momentum it creates begins a cascade of negative outcomes that you're completely unprepared for. Basically, you got what you asked for, you realized it's not what you want. Is it important to cast a protective spell before working any spells? Is there a reverse spell or a stop spell that is more effective? Big hug. Okay. When we have spells that go wrong, understand that there could be a number of reasons why they do, and I'm always harping on equivalent exchange and also making sure that the environment is ready for them. I don't recommend doing a protection spell before doing a spell because sometimes a protection spell can neutralize and stop the spell from happening at all. I do recommend, however, what most people do is, a ritual purification or a cleansing the entire day before, or maybe even the couple of days. Some people do 72 hours of, ritual purifications, house blessings, things like that. Because if you're asking for something that's a vibration, you're trying to force a vibration that's not compatible with the space that you keep, that can cause some problems. Even healing spells, or sending healing. When people send Reiki energy or send angel healing energy, they have a term, it's called a healing crisis, where it's basically like you have a lot of this bright, loving, light energy stirring up in the effort of clearing any kind of denser vibrations that might be there. It's better to kind of get those out of the way. A lot of people are kind of like, I feel like I've been cursed, oh, this energy. It's like, no, it's trying to clean you and you're kind of attached to your dirt right now. So cleansing yourself is actually probably more important than doing a protection spell. Yes, there are spells to call back your energy or call back a spell. And what you might want to do is find a remnant of that spell if there's any leftover wax from the candle, or if you want to just simply copy some parts of it, not the whole thing. Maybe you want to burn the same incense, use the same color candle, use an herb that you used before, and then you can actually ask to retrieve and ground that spell. Best to do that outside, or at least in a pot of soil or salt. Amy Hazelwood asks, Nico, I hope you're doing well. I have a question, or a couple actually. They're about astrology, so feel like you need to wait for the live, I understand. I normally would wait for the live one, and just so you know, Amy, I'm not going to generate your chart for this, just because it's not, it's not fair, and I'm kind of trying to move this into a different, into a different area, because I'm not going to be able to generate everybody's charts in the live one either, but I thought this was useful because there is something coming up here, and she's asking, why can't I ever find information about the planets in one's chart that indicates psychic abilities? Okay, so we want to know what planets can indicate psychic abilities. Do you know the specific place where I can find this information, or can you please give a detailed rundown about Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, and other placements in the chart that could indicate the strongest abilities? I don't really consider Uranus to be a psychic planet. I would say Neptune, the Moon, and Pluto are the ones that I always look at. And I think everyone has psychic abilities. I just think that not everyone is willing or able to train to them for some reason. Now when I say able, it's really, again, able is really more of a choice. Some people don't, they choose not to indulge it, choose not to exercise it, choose not to go with it. So they kind of stick at the base level. Intuition, empathic, that's kind of like a base level. I know you're talking about like heightened ESP, like very specific, like clairvoyance or telepathy or channeling or mediumship, things like that. I would pay more attention to the houses with that, whenever I always tell people, it's like whenever I see things like, say, Neptune in the 6th house, they've got a really good healer kind of mark going on there. Neptune in the 6th house, Neptune is a big healing and cleansing planet. They do need to be careful though, because that is also a placement that could lead to maybe some, addictive tendencies on a different note. But Neptune, for instance, in the 6th would be good for an energy healer. Pluto or the Moon in the 12th or the 8th could also be the mark of a gifted medium. People like me who have Pluto in the 3rd tend to be very good when it comes to the, I guess you could say, the psychic reading, the fortune telling, but especially when it comes to a very specific kind of way. Not the I see change somewhere kind of reading, but definitely a little bit more like dates, times, and places, because Pluto's pretty exacting. And every house is psychic. Every part of it is psychic and spiritual. There's no one that says no. Alright, so I mean, probably a lot to go into, but I think I'll make a video about this here pretty soon. Alright, number 2 of her questions. What is your take on Mercury in the 12th house in the birth chart? I worry sometimes with people who have Mercury in the 12th house, not like worry and like, oh my god, but sometimes the people with Mercury in the 12th house tend to have a start and stop style of communication. Sometimes people with Mercury in the 12th house are kind of like, they're the kinds of people that say like, they don't speak up for very long, and then when they finally do, it can come off a little bit more like a diatribe. And they had no good reason to not speak up. So I'm always kind of like, okay, Mercury in the 12th, they might not necessarily be shy, but they might be a little bit withdrawn too much. They need to practice showing up, a little bit more mentally and socially for things that are going on in their life. Mercury in the 12th is really good for, again, being gifted in more of an artistic capacity, though, as a writer or a visual artist especially. Mythic Rare asks, hey Nico, someone close to me looked through my tarot deck. It feels as though the cards would like to work with them now. Should I give them the tarot deck? Have any of your decks wanted to work with another person? Yes, if you feel called to give it away. You can always ask the cards if you should give it away. I mean, there is like a living energy in there. I gave my old Aleister Crowley Toth deck to Mike, Indigo Speaker, for that very same reason. So yeah, I would definitely do that. I gave that to him, God, probably 2008. He still has it. Rebecca asks, I have a question for the Q&A. Venus entered my sign. Leo recently feels as if everyone wants to be my friend. I get so much support and love from everybody. It's awesome. I heard Venus will retrograde in Leo. Will that mean that it will feel like everybody hates me and no love or support? And she's a triple Leo too. Okay, one of the things that I got, well, first thing, I do have a video called Venus Retrograde, or what to expect during a Venus Retrograde, so I definitely urge everyone who's curious about that to check that out, and I'll be kind of resharing and repopulating that here pretty soon. Venus retrograde is kind of tricky. Honestly, I think it's probably the worst retrograde. A lot of people bitch and moan about Mercury retrograde, but they haven't seen anything, because Venus retrograde, I don't think it's going to make you unpopular, and I don't think it's going to make anyone hate you or anything like that. But be careful with Venus retrograde, because Venus retrograde has a tendency to bring out a lot of, I guess you could say, people's inner crazy, inner insecurities. You know, people are a lot more sensitive, they take things more personally, they tend to have a lot more knee-jerk reactions going on, like they're wearing their sore spots on the outside, you know, during its transit through there from, you know, about late July up until early September. So, that is your Q&A, guys. Don't forget to tune back in next week on the 23rd when I do another live Ask Nico Q&A, and I will be posting the time for that here very soon. And if you have any questions you would like to ask me for the next non-live Q&A, again, feel free to mark below. And for those of you who want to come out to the retreats, either the Seattle retreat or the UK retreat, we are doing tickets now, and please follow links below for more information on that. I'll talk to you later.